Greetings. It's March 26, Thursday, 11:11 in the morning. I'm going to record this video for your viewing pleasure, so to speak, before we meet tonight at 7:30. So it's not going to be as long as the video that I sent to you a few days back. It's not going to be 50 minutes. It's going to be about 30 minutes. Yeah, I'll try to keep 30 minutes. So it's 11:11. We should do this at about, finish this at about 11:41, 11:45, 12 max. So I hope all of you are well under the circumstances. And from now on, I guess we're going to be always adding this under the circumstances to everything we say, because I know that your lives, our lives, are far from normal. I also know how hard change is, and we as social workers know that. It's extremely difficult for people to undergo change, whether it's positive change or negative change. You know, we're encrusted in our habits, we're encrusted in our routines. Humans, it is known in psychology that humans are averse to change. And yet the change has been forced upon us, and that's a given, and we're adjusting best we can with very limited information about what's going on, and that's really taxing on people. Nothing worse is seeing that the world is changing around you and things may never be the same, and yet you have no idea why. It's like the enemy who you could stare in the face is an easy enemy to deal with than the enemy that's lurking in the shadows and you have no idea what he is up to. And of course, I'm not only referring to the virus itself, though I consider the virus threat real, whether it's a natural organism or concocted, created, I don't know, but I do believe that it poses a real danger. And I think that this is our responsibility before ourselves, our loved ones, and our profession, our clients, is to take care of immunity before anything else. There are threats lurking out there. There are hundreds, millions of different microorganisms, germs, microbes, viruses, bacteria, who the hell knows what's lurking there. You cannot protect yourself against each and every one of them, not to mention the fact that they're invisible, like somebody called them invisible enemy. We are waging war on an invisible enemy. That's pretty scary. But our first and may actually be the only recourse under the situation is immunity, immunity, and once again, immunity. You're dropping all your toxic habits. You stop indulging in things that are tasty without bringing any benefit to your body. You are distressing yourself as much as you can, which is really huge hit on immunity when you're stressed. And at the same time, you support your body with proper nutrition, as organic as you can. And I'm going to keep repeating this over and over again. Vegetable-based, again, trying to get organic vegetables, perhaps undercooked so that the nutrients are entering your body more efficiently. And supplementing this, you know, alcohol, I know there is heard you. Alcohol, you need some kind of escape from this tedium. I mean, you're locked in. How you find that escape? How do you find that outlet? Alcohol may actually appear to be an exit. Try not to surrender to it. It's always a temporary measure, and it always, as a remedy, it kind of brings more problems in the long run than solutions. And it really saps our immune system. There's no question about the detriment of alcohol. Perhaps one glass a day is okay, not to mention that, I don't know, good wine is not that common in our consumption habits, but okay. But please be careful with that. Please be careful. We don't want to surrender to this panic, to fear mongering, to uncertainty, to opaqueness, to confusion, to deception, frankly. You know, we do not want to do what those people who created this situation, whether by neglect, on purpose, by commission or omission, we don't know, but the situation is dire. And somebody's responsible, and it's not Wuhan, and it's not Chinese, and it's not even the virus as such. But it's, of course, people who are running this country, you know. Whether it's dismantling of public health, so that the country is utterly unprepared for an epidemic, or if it's not an epidemic, which I tend to think, then why, towards what end is this huge scare is being used for? Why is this triple alliance of the politicians, mainstream media, and the medical establishment is so bent of scaring us to death like this? So I don't know. These are questions. This is my introduction. How much time did I spend on this introduction? 5 minutes is not bad. So let me get, without further ado, I'm going to hit this green button that says share screen. And I'm going to share a screen with this. Back to our slideshow. I mean, in confusion, in terms of turmoil, what else do we have to fall upon? Only 3 things we have in this world now. Is each other, this class, that's one thing, right? This class is a rock, the rock in this time of turmoil. We also have the social work profession as our rock. You know, that's our orientation, that's our paradigm, that's our ideology, that's something that should help us through these turbulent times. And we have this slideshow, we have this file. This is the slide that we left off last week when we just simply went over those 6 fundamental social work values. Slide 12. And then we're unpacking them. This is our continuing conversation that should inform your midterm. Midterm is a reflection paper, and that replaced the originally constructed midterm paper, BV, before virus. Right, so you have that outline, which I still may tinker with today a little bit more before we meet, but still, that's the material that should inform your thinking about the crisis. And sorry, my dog is restless. Okay, good. Yeah. So let's continue our exploration, our dialogue, our conversation on the subject of social work ethical perspective on the coronavirus crisis. Because that's our guide. That's where we begin as the values-based profession in attempting to understand what is happening and what needs to be done. These 6 values continue to be our guidelines, our guides in the crisis. Let me show you, as you already saw in the file, but discuss how we're unpacking it through the our interpretation of these values and their application. And these are pretty viruses. This is really weird stuff about the virus. You know, we've never seen these viruses, and I'm keep contemplating this notion of the war on the invisible front, war on the invisible enemy. Just think about this. And this is a stuff of science fiction, but you know, this is like Star Trek or something. This is like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You know, if we're living some weird sci-fi horror flick. You know, these are representations. These are pictures. You've never seen the virus. You're just fighting the supposed consequences of this consequences of our lifestyles up to now, but also we are fighting the panic that's being spread. All right, so first value of social work profession is service, as we know. Again, to reiterate, social work's primary goal is to help people in need and to address social problems. Just a reminder, we are shifting this definition a little bit to really interpret service to the social work profession. And through that, of course, we are serving our clients and society. Preamble. Social problems tend to amplify in times of crisis. Social workers face more numerous problems of increasing complexity while resources diminish. So one may argue that in times of prosperity and relative stability, social problems are not that intense. How so? Well, society perhaps has more resources to spend on social problems, or more people have more jobs, so if you work, I guess your chances of poverty are smaller. You have more resources to bring to your family as well. Perhaps in times of prosperity, relative calm and stability, our psyche is more stable, right? So all of that would be gone, diminished, sapped in times of crisis. Jobs are being lost, uncertainty, fear, psychological impact of all of this. What does this entail? What is the outcome of this dismantling of the status quo? Well, social problems emerge in this environment, whether it's domestic violence or mental illness as a social problem, not medical, or unemployment, poverty, drug use, alcoholism, all of these things, of course, tend to emerge in times of crisis as ways of reacting and means of coping with it as well. Crime. Not crime of indulgence, but crime of desperation. When you have nothing to feed your family with, what are you going to do? So that's the preamble. And then I have 3 propositions, and it's pretty much the format for the rest of the 6 values, and that's what I'll try to cover, right, in the remaining 20 minutes. So on the service, proposition 1, social workers help people to protect mental and physical health through universal precautions and remedies. Number 1 responsibility of social workers in the context of value of service is protecting mental and physical health of people. And by people, I mean everybody, including yourself. First and foremost, yourselves, your family, your clients, your colleagues. That's your responsibility, protect mental and physical health. How? Through universal precautions and remedies. There are certain rules out there that we follow in order to stay healthy. And that's really, regardless of coronavirus, you should be washing your hands. It's basic. Regardless whether there is a coronavirus or not, you should not be exposing yourself to toxic impacts. You should not be eating crap. We should also, whether it's crisis or not, take care of our immunity by eating right, by supplementing our diet with proper additives and so on. All right, so that's proposition 1. Proposition 2, social workers help people understand. Why am I dropping 2s? Social workers help people to understand the situation through access to information and critical thinking. Crisis situation. What is probably the biggest dangers right now? Well, the economic impact is coming, but it's that psychological impact. It's that cognitive dissonance that we're having between what we're observing and what we're being told. But it's also this panic, this fear of uncertainty, which is so common under the circumstances. These things do not yield to understanding that is kind of needed. Cognitive analysis, thinking, perspective on the situation is absolutely necessary in order to cope with the emotions that are not that good nowadays. People are not that optimistic. People are not certain. People are disturbed. So these emotional aspects of the situation, we're not going to medicate them, right? Our prescription is not antidepressants or tranquilizers or alcohol. Social work perspective on the crisis, when it comes to understanding, is that through understanding of the situation, we're going to be able to diminish the emotions. We are so emotional because we don't understand what's going on. Or we don't trust what we are being told. Or what we're being told is inadequate for our peace of mind. So our responsibility is to understand. We understand and we help others to understand the situation. I'm not saying that, I don't think the situation is such that it allows complete understanding, because so much is hidden from us. But there are certain things need to be unpacked. Certain things need to be unpacked. I'll just give you a quick example. We have this disturbing rates of increase in mortality associated with this virus. And we're being spooked every day by these horrific numbers that are being pumped at us. At this point, 1,000 people in the United States have died from supposedly coronavirus. This number needs to be deconstructed. Numbers are just toys. They're like tools in the hands of those who want to use them for their rhetorical advantage. You understand that, right? I am not so certain, this is one, I am not certain that a person who is, God bless him, may he live to be 100, but if at the age of 82, he is beset by all kinds of physical problems, has just undergone lung cancer surgery, is on chemo following that surgery, is still suffering of horrific respiratory illnesses related to lung cancer, right? On chemo, all of that stuff, imagine, right? If he dies at this moment of pneumonia, and he was found to have the coronavirus in him, I would not blame coronavirus for killing him. Was this a precipitating factor? Maybe. Was this a contributing factor? Maybe. Or was it just an inert virus in his body that had no relevance, no impact on his medical condition? Just happened to be in his body when he died of the host of other conditions that he had. People do die. That's one quality of being human. We die. When we're very sick, we die. Ask Dr. Dinah, who is teaching the course on death and dying, if you don't believe me. So why are we diagnosing post-mortem this gentleman with the cause of death as coronavirus? Okay? I'm going to leave it at that for now. We're going to return to that. But I wonder how many of these diagnoses, 1,000, in fact, are attributed to coronavirus in error. Whether it's an error or malicious intent, I have no idea. But this is not the only case. And then the issue of the mortality rate. Whatever that coronavirus is, now they're attributing kind of high mortality rates of 2%. In other words, 2 people out of 100 would die of this virus. And imagine now everybody's going to be sick and have millions of people dead. But we do not know the spread of this virus. People are not being tested. And there are hundreds of thousands, millions of people maybe out there working with this virus and not even having any symptoms. And therefore now we're calculating the mortality rate against the speculative infection rate of 60,000 or something in the United States. But nobody knows what's the number, what the number is. Was the entire population tested? Of course not. And by the way, are tests accurate? Not so apparently. There was a young guy, age 17, who dies a few days back. Coronavirus, first teenager dying from coronavirus. Well, today there's an article that the test was not accurate. He did not probably die of the virus. This is the situation. I suggest we kind of tune out of most of the literally garbage that's pouring on us through the mainstream media. I mean, find a few sources on the YouTube who you trust, who analyze this for you, deconstruct it for you through critical thinking, and give you something saner than all this propaganda and deception that's being poured on us through the mainstream media. Okay, that's my aside. Proposition number 3 with respect to service. Social workers help people preserve, maintain, and strengthen connections with each other. Pardon me little grammatic glitches, okay? I'm also going through transformation and all that. Yeah, I'm a little disturbed. Not disturbed, that's not the word. I am concerned. I'm very much concerned. But I'm not concerned in fear. I'm concerned in seeking the proper course of action for myself, my family, my friends, my students, and others. So proposition number 3, social workers help people preserve, maintain, and strengthen connections with each other. This crisis is a huge hit on our social constructs. We talked a lot about the absolute necessity for humans to be near each other, rub shoulders, elbows if you wish is necessary, whatever. See each other, hear each other directly, not through amplification of digital technology, smell each other. We need it. We are humans. We are social animals. And now we are being deprived of that process on many fronts. Social workers need to find ways. I don't actually have any suggestions, but maybe through this midterm paper, reflection paper, you could suggest something. How do we meet the challenge of the proposition 3 in terms of social work values under the circumstances of service and the coronavirus? Another pretty cloud, non-chemtrail cloud, silver lining. Value number 2, social justice. I think I'm going to finish on the 3 values here, but I'd rather have this, well, maybe I'll expand the lecture a little bit to 45 minutes, maybe. Yeah, let me cover all these 6 values, please. Value number 2, social justice. How is social justice playing out in the context of this virus of the social work value in terms of the topic of social work values and the crisis? Social workers challenge social injustice. Okay, here's a preamble. The time of social crisis, for example, wars and disasters, and if I may add, epidemics, were often used by the dominant system as means for extending its power. Think about that. Think about that. War Powers Act, imprisonment of socialist Eugene Debs during World War I. No, of course, our constitutional rights are suspended in war and crisis like that. Our constitutional rights are suspended right now. Right of assembly, right of free speech is coming too. Oh, it's already there. They're editing and censoring Facebook and YouTube's and all that. So yeah, in terms of social justice, this is the time of oppression. This is the time of political domination. And of course, all of those things are challenging social justice. This is unjust for whatever reason. Okay, the reason is the virus. But right now, injustice is prevailing when people are being deprived of their constitutional rights. We cannot communicate with others. That's a biggie. And some others as well. So that's my preamble, that this time of crisis calls for understanding that the government is going to be expanding its powers. Proposition 1, in light of the preamble, social workers are aware of social class dialectics that include oppression, exploitation, and social control. Oppression, exploitation, social control were not abolished by this crisis. The hypothesis here that in fact oppression, exploitation, and social control are exacerbated in times of crisis. and against what backdrop? Well, actually, we're going to see exacerbation of social class dialectics. What is that? The antagonism between the rich and the poor. Who do you think is going to be losers in this economic turmoil that's undergoing right now? How far are we going to be taken by this check for $1,200? And how much of this trillions, whether it's 6 or 13 trillion, some are calculating, of this rescue bailout package, how much of this is going to trickle down to people in this trickle-down economy, neoliberal trickle-down economy, where the first and foremost interest of the governmental institutions is the interest of the corporations. You already see articles about how much lobbying the business associations, the corporations are doing now to rip off a chunk of this bailout for themselves. So we are going to get a pittance, and the corporations are going to benefit from that. Some say that this whole virus crisis is actually a cover for the corporations to extricate themselves from this economic pit in which they are right now because of very terrible condition of the American economy. You know, tens of trillions of dollars in debt. Supposedly employment is better, but jobs are not paying that well. Lots of people are not looking for a job. So unemployment rates, they say, are bogus. But now they're exploding. Today, news today, 3.5 million with an M, people filed for unemployment in the United States during the last week. That's the tidal wave. That's the tidal wave. It's the million of people filing for unemployment and tens of millions of people hit with severe economic crisis through this. And that's exacerbation of social class struggle, social class dialectics between the rich and the poor. And that's about social justice in times of crisis, in terms of coronavirus. Proposition 2, social workers organize communities through raising of awareness, disseminating information, and building knowledge. Sometimes it's difficult to say what's right, what you think is right, but somehow we need to allay some fears of the population, have to be able to do that. Perhaps with the final product coming out of this course about the stress, about stress. And we need to help people understand what's happening, or at least not to be so panicky, at least not to react in the way that the political establishment wants us to react. Once again, raising awareness, understanding rather than emoting, because a lot of people are going to be emoting the wrong way. A lot of displacement is going to take place. People are frustrated, uncertain, fearful, anxious. They're angry. Where is that anger is going to play out? How are they going to unleash that anger? How is that anger is going to be channeled? I'm afraid that anger has a tendency to be channeled in very pathological ways, like domestic violence or substance abuse. Proposition 3 under social justice. Social workers organize communities for action towards community wellness and empowerment. Not understanding is not enough. We have to help our communities, social work clients in general, as systems, as collectivities, and as individuals, to do something to strengthen their situation. I believe that there is a silver lining in this crisis. And if we do not simply follow what the government tells us to do, think, and feel, I think we could benefit from the situation. I think we can. I think there's a silver lining. And that would be the course of action that we develop for ourselves towards community wellness. And that's an empowerment. And that's the course of action that we develop for the communities as well, towards community wellness and empowerment through this crisis. It's a poster again from World War I, Chinese, I believe, in times of Spanish flu. Those masks are remarkably similar to ours. Though we know that it's been said over and over again that masks are not effective in protecting the person from viruses. Viruses are too tiny, and they just slip through the fibers of the mask or whatever material it's made of. And then what's more, wearing a mask creates this kind of humid environment under the mask. That's a perfect breeding place for microbes. So I don't know. All right. Value number 3, dignity and worth of the person in times of coronavirus crisis. Social workers respect the integrity and worth of the person. Wait, let me just see. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. So, preamble. This crisis is accompanied by a growing panic. When the fearful population is herded into isolation, have their humanity challenged and civil rights removed and relegated to simulated environments online, meaning virtual, for education, work, and socialization. Again, preamble kind of describes to you what's going on a hypothetical level, but also through observation and some analysis. The coronavirus crisis is accompanied by a growing panic among the population that is fearful and herded into this isolation cells, if you wish, called apartments, houses, or rooms. And through these measures have their humanity challenged, that need to socialize with others, that need to work, that need to be productive, they need to connect with other people, that need to see other people, to touch them, to empirically experience other people. That is challenged, and that's what we are, that's our humanity. And also civil rights are removed, like we just discussed. And humans are also relegated to simulated environments for education, social work and socialization, right? For the lack of the opportunities to see you in class, I have to be relegated, we have to be relegated to the virtual simulated environment of Zoom and Blackboard and Facebook, I don't know what else. For everything, education, work, and socialization, you cannot now go and work at the store. Whether it's Macy's or grocery store, no. Well, grocery store, they have skeleton crews. But Macy's is closed, just in case you're wondering. I'm going to go through these 3 propositions, and that's going to be the end of today's session. So we only covered 3 values, but that's okay. Proposition 1, such expressions of human dignity and worth as constitutional rights must be respected even in times of crisis. Right? We have to understand this. We should not just simply surrender our constitutional rights to assembly and free speech and etc. just because somebody in the government said that we have to. We're not going to be militant about it, but we'll have to find other peaceful means of resisting it, because this is not something that we're going to give up. That's the heart of democracy. Where is democracy? And I understand there's crisis, I understand these emergency measures. I'm yet to be convinced that there is a need for such tremendous political and economic emergency measures to react to this crisis. Is it knee-jerk? Is it a plan? I don't know. But we have to sustain our respect, devotion even, to our constitutional rights. That's all we have in terms of democracy. Proposition 2, deception, lack of transparency, and manipulation are inconsistent with respect for human dignity and worth. And here I'm referring to the mainstream media, pronouncements of the politicians, left and right, which are never consistent, which are always opaque, which is always kind of propagandistic, bombastic. Just watch Cuomo. One day, 3 days ago, he's telling, oh guys, yeah, all these measures are in, but you have nothing to worry about. We just mortality, the rate of infection is up because we're counting more, and look at the regular flu that takes many more lives. And then he turns around and a day later he is like talking about the catastrophic astronomical numbers, whereas the situation in New York, yes, I mean, more people are dying, but we are in hundreds in New York State, hundreds. And we are talking about 30 million living in New York State. I know it's cold. I know every life is precious. I understand all of that. But people do die. And misdiagnoses are made by purpose or omission. I don't know. And I'm not sure you need to add insult to the injury where, yes, there is a problem. But then why crying wolf? Why screaming that the sky is falling? So that needs to be understood. We really have to be able to deconstruct deception, lack of transparency, and the manipulation, because they're inconsistent with respect for human dignity and worth, and because we need to do that in order to get closer to a modicum of understanding. And before I finish, proposition number 3 under dignity and worth in times of crisis. Technological simulations of human talents represent a potential threat to human dignity and worth. We talked about this a lot. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Suffice it to say that human talents, when they're being outsourced to machines, digital, mechanical, whatever, we learned that, we studied that, we know that, we are losing them. We're outsourcing them and losing them. And in this environment, this is a clear, real and clear danger. This is exactly what's happening right now. When we are in the seclusion, in this isolation, in confinement, in solitary environments, that is when we are expected to shift to virtual manifestations, representations, and that's a clear expectation that we're going to be fully committed to that environment. We should stop that. This is the time for us, as much as possible, to understand the technological extensions are robbing us of our talents and not providing us with neither solace nor understanding. These are escapes right now, and they're not going to make our lives easier. If we could shift that right now from electronic virtual activities to analog, that would be tremendous. I don't know if instead of playing children on the computer, we could find some objects for them, with them to play. Maybe we should get back to chess, real chess, not computer chess, checkers, sewing, with doing anything and everything with our hands as much as we can. Because the expectation that we're going to be losing it more and more now. No, we should resist that. That's it. And serendipitously, there is a phone call. I'm going to answer and then finish the class. Hello? Rada, hold on 1 second. Let me do something quickly. You know what? I'll call you in a couple of minutes. Bye. All right. So, okay. So that's that. I'm going to finish the recording, and I'm going to see you at 7:30. I'll send you another email, of course, with this file. How do I stop recording?